How do we find them? I don't know. Just focus on not getting hurt.
The plaza had exploded into more violence, as thousands of protesters had stormed in through the breach. The police, who thought they were safe behind the heavily armed security forces, were now desperately holding the riot at bay. As the vanguard took on the police with clubs, rocks, and the occasional gun, hundreds of others broke into the offices and hotels. Inside, they smashed, looted, and drank their fill of crystal-clear water. The first group of looters had run into Amy and Bob in the hotel lobby. The rioters had almost attacked them, but had been persuaded to otherwise by Amy's rifle. Now the two of them were out in the open, trying to make their way through the crowd to their friends. Someone tried to wrestle the rifle out of Amy's hand. She punched him in the stomach. It was a young boy.
Is anyone in charge here? It doesn't look like it. Fuck, if someone doesn't start giving orders, this riot will be over in an hour. You'd expect Joe and Ronnie and Norbert being somewhere visible.
Yeah, nobody in particular.
What if they're directing it from far away, like you did last time? It's not really Joe's style. It would explain the chaos, though. I can see some people standing still at the back where all that smoke is coming from. Let's get there. Someone must have told them to hold that position.
The police have abandoned the western end of the plaza. The hotels are ours.
Excellent. What's the next move, General Janice?
Screw you. We were fools to think we could control this thing after we broke through the barricade. That being said, the smartest move would be to take a few hundred armed troops through the hotels and around the enemy.
Outflank the police?
Something like that. They're still shaken by the explosion. We should use that. They were at the eastern end of the plaza, almost on the lawn of the gardens now. The Nepthys stronghold was defended by heavily armed men who were patiently holding their ground. They were too disciplined to draw attention to themselves by firing before someone tried to attack them. So far, the rioters had given them a wide enough berth.
What we should do is storm the gardens.
You're in charge, but I'm telling you that these folks won't be too enthusiastic about running towards machine guns.
Perhaps we should...
Josephine's phone rang.
Amy's calling. Not Amy. Amy, where are you? You sure know how to make a spectacular entrance, Miss Lace, and you've collected a respectably sized entourage. Tell me, is it true that burning flesh smells terrible? To what do I owe the pleasure, Francis? Were you afraid I'd forgotten about you? You know, I was actually thinking of asking you out. How about right now? I hate to say this, Francis, but I'm actually a bit busy overthrowing the social order and whatnot. Perhaps I should let my charming companion explain the situation to you. You're charming. Josephine, please, don't take the bait. Mr. Brabeck is going to use airstrikes in the middle of the city. I'm sorry. Amy. Lovely, isn't she? Though she does have a habit of talking too much. She isn't wrong, however. Now, she has 20 minutes to live if you don't give yourself up. If you do, she goes free and the missiles stay in the satellites where they belong. You have my word. I only want you. This mob you tricked into coming with you will be free to disperse and return to their homes. Ironic that I'm giving your people a chance to survive where my soldiers got nothing of the sort from you. They got the same odds as my neighbors, and Norbert, and the people you're killing with thirst. Your precious Amy is about to receive that same chance. I look forward to our reunion. You know where to find us.
He hung up. At least Amy is alive.
She won't be for long. We have to save her, and stop those airstrikes.
Is he really crazy enough to bomb his own backyard?
He's planning to kill half the city with thirst.
Good point. What now? If we rally enough troops, we can assault the gardens.
If we do that, he'll kill Amy instantly and then drop the bombs on us. We'll have to find another entrance.
Joe, we can't both go.
What do you mean? I need you.
We have to lead this uprising. It's hard enough as it is. If we leave or die, it's going to fall apart.
And if we stay, it'll disappear in a rain of fire. Francis is the head of the Snake. If we kill him, no one is going to run the defense or call the airstrikes.
You could say the same about us. If I'm General Janus, then you're President Lace. Neither of those jobs involve daring raids.
I have to do this. Francis has taken too many lives that matter to me. But I don't want to do it without you.
And I'd never let you go without me. Fuck! Fine, but we have to get quick and get back. Without us, these gangs and unions and angry mobs will start beating each other. Do you at least have a way in? A plan that will make it seem like we're not just sacrificing everyone following us?
I do. Sort of. Follow me.
She led them back through the crowd, away from the gardens. As they pushed their way through new arrivals, Ronnie looked back. Why were they running away from the gardens? They reached the hole. It was still guarded by the flashlight crew, who had managed to keep people from falling into it. The corpses of the guards who had also been looted thoroughly. What exactly are you planning? Is there a secret subway station in the gardens?
No, but close. Remember when water pipes used to run underground?
Sure, that was so long ago that remembering it makes me feel old, but yes.
They ran parallel to the subway line for a long distance, and one pipe brought all the water to the gardens. After the new high-level surface pipes were built, it was sealed behind a concrete wall too thick to dig through. It hasn't been considered a viable entry point for years.
But then someone blew up a train right next to it, and now that concrete wall might be gone?
It's definitely gone. I just hope the pipe isn't.
Ronnie tossed a torch in the hole. It found ground some 3 to 4 meters down. We can make that jump, probably. I'll go first.
Wait, what if you get hurt?
Then you can use me as a cushion.
You?
Ronnie out! She hung from the ledge, gave a smile and a wink, and let go. Ugh, it's okay, just be careful when you land. Josephine slung her rifle over her shoulder and followed Ronnie's example. The fall made her dizzy, and she landed with less grace than Ronnie.
I look forward to having a career where I don't have to drop from high places or visit them.
But that would be so boring. Using a flashlight, they scattered around. Most of the dead guards had been carelessly thrown into the hole. The ground was littered with dusty, charred corpses.
I'm no longer sure this was a good idea.
Me neither. Let's keep moving. I don't want to be here. Which way? Josephine led the way out of the crater and into the dark tunnel. Nothing remained of the train, nor the train tracks. The tunnel had fractured and collapsed in many places.
It'll take months before this is fixed.
Longer. Hey, what is it we're looking for? Is this what we're looking for? It was. The concrete wall blocking the old pipe was intact in places, but only here and there. The pipe itself was mostly full of rubble. It took them a while to find a point of entry. Once they did, they snuck through a thin crevice into the pipe. It was high enough to stand in. This is why all previous revolutions failed. The people in charge didn't know the intricacies of urban plumbing.
They did. Don't you remember when Mr. Kendrick spoke about his military service?
Oh yeah, something about rebels hiding in the sewers and hitting the uptown through them.
That's why the pipes are above ground.
Nice.
So, really, we're just continuing a noble tradition.
Mr. Kendrick fought against that tradition.
And regretted it. Do you think he'd approve of what we did here?
The explosion? Honestly, I have no idea. The man was no coward, but I don't know if he was a revolutionary either. I think the more important question is, will we regret this when we're his age?
You think we might live that long? We aren't going to die tonight or in some miserable skirmish in a back alley in a few months?
If Mr. Kendrick taught us anything, it's never too late to die pointlessly in some miserable skirmish.
I know, but I can't live without thinking he had moments of peace somewhere in between.
Me neither. Do you? Do you think we'll ever have that?
Moments of peace?
Yeah. I mean, I don't see you stopping the fight anytime soon, but I'd like to get to spend some time with you.
You don't think this is a fun activity?
I'm being serious, Joe.
Oh, sorry. I want it too, but only if I can take that time knowing I can do it with good conscience. I'm not taking you to the beach if I know that people in our city are dying of thirst, but it flatters me that your mind is already set on a life together. Mine is too.
But it might be a life of struggle and uncertainty?
It will be. Can you live with that?
I can. Thanks. Hey, how long is this pipe going on?
Hard to say. It shouldn't be much longer, if we're in the right pipe.
Oh, so we might end up underneath the Mansa Musa towers instead? Lovely. They didn't. The pipe ended in a dark, round space with musty, moldy walls. There was a ladder to the ceiling with a hatch at the other end.
This is the old reserve tank. Once we're through that hatch, we're in the gardens.
I always wondered what this place would look like from the inside.
You're gonna be disappointed. It's an office, though it does get more comfy the higher you go.
In that case, I can't wait to see the top. They climbed through the hatch and emerged into a dimly lit room with other smaller water tanks.
Aim for the top, Francis Buster.
Episode title!
Okay, we're in maintenance at the very bottom.
And Francis will be...
Knowing him at the very top.
Oh, it's just like my favorite anime. Sword Art Online: Alicization. Ronnie. I imagine the building because I said my name out loud. That's how much I love anime.
I do that when I'm stressed too sometimes.
I imagine the building is going to be full of guards. What do we do about them?
Get around them if we can. It's faster.
And if we can't?
We kill everyone standing between me and Francis.
Damn! Amy was taking her time talking to the man guarding the big hole. Bob couldn't really hear what they were saying, not in this bloody ruckus. But he was beginning to realize that Josephine and the others hadn't lost control. They had disappeared. And they'd done so at a bad time. The police had gotten reinforcements, and now it was the protesters that were running away. There were gunshots in the distance, followed by screams.
So, that man says Joe and Ronnie jumped into that hole a while ago. He's messing with us. Let me hang him by his feet over that hole for a while. That should... I don't think he was lying. What I don't get is where Norbert's gone. He wouldn't abandon Josephine. Maybe they split up, or maybe he's been captured too. Maybe. Either way, we should follow them, right? I don't know where they're going, but they're gonna need help. No, if they really went there, we'll never find them. We'll just get lost in the sewers. Alright, what's your plan? I'm not the plan guy. But you feel fine telling me my plan is bad. Pretty much. Jokes aside, look around you. Someone needs to take charge around here. These people here? Josephine's supposed to be in charge of them. She brought them here. Well, she clearly ain't. Whatever her plan was, she's done with this law. Of course. What? The protest is a diversion. She's trying to pull the same trick she pulled last time there was a demonstration. Last time, there was a lot less shooting and explosions. And everyone is looking at them, meaning she's free.
Bob's eyes lit up.
She's free to break into that fucking waterfall house. She's going after Francis. Exactly as Francis predicted. Fuck, you're right.
Bob was silent for a while. He towered over most people in the square. The leaderless crowd was getting more and more desperate. You could see the lines of riot police pushing forward, hosing the protesters with water, and flooding the streets with tear gas. How could Josephine abandon these people? They would never have come to this trap if not for her. And they'd never win this fight without her.
This is a mess. Is there any way we could get word to them or lend them a hand? She ain't an idiot. She knows the enemy will be prepared. She led half the town here. But if she's already inside, this riot will turn into a bloodbath sooner or later. If Francis was telling the truth about airstrikes and tanks, we need to get off of the streets. Not just us, everyone. Everyone needs to get somewhere where the guards can't blow them up. Back downtown? Are you deaf? We gotta get somewhere the bloodsuckers won't shoot. Their own houses. If we take the skyscrapers and hold as many rich people as we can hostage, no merc is gonna shoot at their paymaster. But how do we get them to listen to us? They follow Josephine because her name is famous. They don't know who we are. I wonder how many of them have actually seen what Joe looks like. No, I can't pull that off. You have to. They won't follow an angry old man. I'm not sure. Why aren't you sure? I've seen you do amazing things.
Plus, she pretended to be you that one time. Seems to me like it evens out.
You pretended to be a shrink and a god, and multiple other people pretended to be you, and actually I'm losing track. That's different. It is. Those times you had to pretend to be something you're not. Now you just have to embrace who you are. What? Do I need to spell it out for you? Barely an hour ago, you duped Francis into telling you his plan and jumped out of a helicopter. I know a fighter when I see one, and you got it in you to be a leader as well. Thanks, Bob. That means a lot to me, but I'm not sure
Bob sidestepped her and went to speak to a man with a flashlight.
Who exactly did you see jump down that hole? Can you identify them?
The man looked confused.
Well, there was General Janice, who told us to stay here, and some chick. That chick was Amy Sierra. You have new orders now, from her.
That girl? The man asked, his face unsure if Bob was joking or not.
I'd watch my tone if I were you.
Oh yeah? Who does the girl think she is, overruling General Janice? Amy stepped forward, making sure her rifle was visible.
I'm the one who gives orders to General Janice.
This man was suddenly a lot more scared. You don't mean...
I'm Josephine Lace. Now, will you follow me?
The man shook his head, laughing.
No way in hell that's true. Lace is a hero. Pretending to be her is disgraceful. Oh? Then what can I tell you to make you believe? Shall I tell you how Nephthys murdered my neighbors? Or how Bob here tore the doors of General Hospital off their hinges so I could escape? Or how my group blew up a water pipe at 5 points at the same time? What do you need to know?
Well, I know you have a cybernetic heart.
Really? Think you're the first guy to try that trick to see me topless? If you'd rather stand here with a flashlight, I'll find someone else. Someone with guts.
The man scrambled to salute. I'm so sorry, ma'am, he said. I believe you. Take me with you. The man turned to Bob. And if she's crazy Joe Lace, then you must be Bob the Bull.
Damn right. Except I once wrestled with a bull. The bull lost. Great, now you know who we are. Listen to me. Everyone on the square will die if we don't get them to safety. Can I count on you and your friends to help?
The man lit up with excitement. Yes, ma'am, we're right behind you. She gathered a group of people holding the flashlights and explained her plan. Once she was done, she gestured to Bob, who promptly hoisted her up onto his shoulders. That in itself turned a fair few eyes towards them.
Care to bellow me some attention, Bob the Bull? Finally, a nickname I don't hate. Attention, listen up. Crazy Joe Lace is here.
Bob's mighty voice echoed around the surrounding buildings, and soon enough everyone within hearing range was listening. They were waiting for Amy to speak.
Everyone, I want you to listen up and spread the word. The police are a decoy. While we fight here in the mud, Francis Brabeck and his kind dine in their towers, watching and sipping clear water. They're having a party, and we're the entertainment. And when they get bored, they will unleash missiles on us.
Silence. It was spreading. Amy worried that someone would realize she wasn't Josephine Lace any moment now.
We didn't come here just for a scuffle in the yard, did we? We came to give the bloodsuckers running this city what they've had coming for years.
Shouts, hurrahs, whistles. A rush washed over Amy, tingling her toes and raising the hair on the back of her neck.
The rich have spilled our blood as long as the city has stood. It's time to turn the tables. The men and women with the flashlights will lead you to the towers. Follow them inside. Take back what's ours and spill some blood.
Another wave of hurrahs and whistles. Amy gave the signal, and the rioters behind her ran to different locations, holding their lights high. Instinctively, the people rallied to the closest light and followed it. Those still uncertain were swept up by the growing streams of rioters. Far across the square, many were still battling the police, and many more stood, waiting for her to come. The man Amy had spoken to before handed her his flashlight. She turned it on to more cheers. She was now Josephine Lace, and that meant she was a legend.
Where to, Joe?
Amy waved her light to more cheers. The people around her began pummeled by the wealthy and the politicians in their pockets for decades. Bit by bit, they'd been pushed downtown into precarious jobs, smaller homes, and desperate situations. Well, people like Amy, she realized. Not just megalomaniacs like Francis, but also ordinary uptown families. People who ordered deliveries from exploitative businesses, or wore fashion made by invisible hands in sweatshops far away. All of them knew vaguely that things down below weren't rosy. But that which one does not see is easy to forget. And there were ways to get a clean conscience, of course. Donate to charity, vote in the right way. Belong to a student union. Amy had always had a pain somewhere deep down. An unease, a hole. She tried to fill it with activism and going vegan. And it was the first time ever that pain wasn't there. She looked at her followers and saw anger, but also weariness. As humans do well and easily, they'd adapt every little way their lives were getting worse. They'd worked a little harder, learned to skip meals, adjusted their dreams to better fit uncertain jobs and mounting debt. Gotten used to living without dignity. It was something Amy realized she'd never done. And now they'd had enough. They'd taken a genocidal maniac trying to kill them with thirst, but now they had nothing more to lose. All they needed was a leader. Someone like them who'd suffered and persevered. She hoisted her rifle in her other hand. They wouldn't follow Amy Sierra. Why would they?
To the gardens!
With thunderous cheers, the crowd surged towards the source of all their problems. They would follow Josephine Lace, and if Amy had to be here for one night, then so be it. They heard gunshots before they saw any guards. Ronnie and Josephine ran through the abandoned offices. Where did you work?
Before my resignation, a couple of floors up, but I started on this floor, designing the pipe grid.
Doesn't seem like much of a job.
I was fresh out of university. It was like a dream come true. Steady pay, plenty of career opportunities.
Used to be a real kiss-ass to bosses, huh?
Yes. I wanted to be at the top. That was the dream that got me out of bed every morning.
I guess we all need one of those.
Mine almost came true. I got there once.
And now you'll get there again. What on earth is happening up there? The individual shots had turned into a steady drumming of distant gunfire.
It looks like someone's trying to break into here.
It would make me feel safer to burst into Francis's office with an army of angry poor people.
Should we try and open the door then?
Yes, please. How far's the lobby exactly?
You know, I haven't been to the basement in a while, but I think the lobby is at the end of these stairs.
She wanted to rush up and start shooting, but Ronnie grabbed her by the shoulder. There have to be 100 of them up there. We need to be careful.
They're not expecting us to come from down here. We can do it.
But we don't have to be idiots about it. You stay down, I'll scout. Josephine nodded. Ronnie made sense. For someone with a temper, she was incredibly level-headed when in mortal danger.
We have to hurry, though. I'm going to need more power eventually.
Ronnie didn't say anything. She sunk to her belly and crawled up the stairs like a python on the prowl. She peeked around a corner, still lying on the ground, but careful to always point her gun wherever she was going. Slowly, she rose to one knee and hoisted her rifle. Then she suddenly rolled to safety, escorted by bullets tearing the wall apart.
Ronnie, are you alright?
Ronnie was breathing heavily. I am, but we're not. They've got these stairs covered with a machine gun. Whoever designed the defenses was prepared for us.
Francis has a plan B. What kind of position was it?
I told you, a machine gun behind sandbags, at least 2 soldiers operating it. And likely to be more in a moment.
Crap, do we have grenades?
I can't throw one that far. Are you sure this is the only way up?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No time for that. We need a plan and fast. Are you really sure there's no other way? Josephine nodded.
This was the hidden passage they weren't supposed to consider. It's this or the front door.
We can't get to that machine gun in one piece. What shall we do, go back the way we came?
That's not an option.
Then we need a plan ASAP.
I have one idea. It's a bad one.
Every idea we've had these last few months has been a bad idea. Shoot.
You're going to hate it.
Try me.
I'm going to give myself up to Francis.
What? No, as your sort of girlfriend, I have a veto. No. Josephine kissed her and held her and whispered her plan. Amy plunged into the cold water. The artificial streams crisscrossing the lawn of the gardens weren't deep enough for a cat to swim in, but they were the only cover available. Her mob had been met by machine gun fire the instant they began approaching the gardens. Dozens had died. They'd scattered about the surroundings, finding cover in the ditches behind cars. People had to run to the hole and picked up charred sandbags and still smoking steel plates that they carried with them. Those that had rifles were responding to the fire the best they could from cover. Someone was trying to dig the ditch into a deeper trench, but it was lined with concrete. Others were having more success digging up the ground and piling it into small earthworks. No one was completely safe, though. Bullets were constantly sending up the dirt next to Amy. She hadn't fired back yet. The enemy was holed up behind sandbags and steel plates of their own at the doorway and throughout the first floor. Snipers on the upper floors were picking off the rioters with frightening ease. Not far from her, a young woman was using the corpse of an older man as cover while she fired towards the machine guns. It didn't last long. Flesh made for poor protection. Still half submerged, Amy called for Bob on her watch.
Where are you? On my way. Stop bothering me.
Carefully, Amy lifted her head and saw a dark mass approaching slowly from out of the night. The riders hanging back gave it wide berth. It was definitely a car, but it didn't seem like there was anyone inside of it. The interior was instead filled with rock and debris from the explosion. Suddenly, from somewhere behind all the stone and earth, a gun fired towards the gardens. The rioters cheered, men and women with guns, Molotov cocktails, and clubs huddled behind the great steel beast. The car's engine wasn't on. Instead, there were 3 huge men pushing it forward from behind. The largest of them was Bob. Behind him, rioters were chanting his name. Amy smiled and joined in.
Bob the Bull! Bob the Bull! Bob the Bull!
Others joined her chant at the sight of their improvised battering ram reinvigorated the rioters. At the same time, gunshots rang out from the other buildings around the gardens. The other groups had been successful and were now joining the fight. The guards at the gardens immediately saw the threat and turned on all their machine guns to fire on the car. This gave many of the suppressed riders a chance to finally shoot back, including Amy. The gun from in the car stopped firing. Whoever was inside it had been hit, despite the protection, but Bob pushed the car forward. Amy heard a faint sound above her. She rolled over in the ditch and looked up. Her fears were confirmed. A small wing of drones were buzzing towards them, no doubt intending to drop bombs on the men pushing the car.
Shoot the drones!
Amy tried to follow her own orders. She fired 4 times. One of the drones began to slowly fall. She grinned and triumphed until she saw something fall from it. She pressed her head down and heard the explosion followed by horrified screams. By now, everyone who could was trying to shoot down the drones. One by one, they began to fall, each dropping their deadly cargo in a final act of defiance. Amy was so busy looking up she didn't see the explosion. When she heard it, her heart skipped a beat. A bomb had gone off right next to the car. The 3 men were down. She couldn't see if they were hit. Slowly, one of them got up and fled in terror. It wasn't Bob. Amy stared at the 2 lumps of flesh behind the car in horror. Could Bob be? Then one of the lumps rose to his knees and stood up. It was Bob. The grunt, he grabbed the car and began pushing alone. The crowd chanted as the car moved slowly. Bob the Bull! Bob the Bull! Bob the Bull! Amy couldn't resist grinning as Bob moved the car full of stones by himself. The guards at the outer defenses were no longer shooting. Amy realized they'd fled back inside. Behind Bob, at least 100 riders were itching for their chance to breach the wall of sandbags. Just as the car was about to reach the defenses, though, it suddenly exploded into a furious ball of flame and fire.
Bob!
She turned around and saw where the explosion had come from. Francis had promised tanks. Now they had arrived. Francis looked upon the battlefield, smiling. Miss Sierra had been so enthusiastic to break into the gardens that she'd neglected to worry about the looming threat of armored vehicles. The mob followed her zealously, so zealously, in fact, that they probably thought she was Miss Lace. Francis had been fooled for a while, too, but then his guardsman had reported that someone had entered the basement. Only Lace had that kind of cunning. His watch buzzed.
Ms. Lace, do you think love can bloom even on a battlefield? Have you considered my offer? I have. I'll come to you alone, but you'll let everyone else escape, including Ronnie. I'll need guarantees. Without you, they're nothing more than rabble, Janice included, a swarm of blind rats. They'll disperse if they're smart. Killing them would be expensive and potentially bad PR. That's the only guarantee I'll give you. I'll take it. What do I do now? As you know, at the end of the hallway you're about to enter, there's a machine gun that will kill you if you approach it. At the other end, there is an open elevator. My men will let you pass to it unharmed, provided you keep your hands up. That elevator will bring you to me. And you'll let Ronnie escape? If she starts to run now, she'll have a good head start. I'll see you upstairs.
Josephine hung up the call. She turned to Ronnie.
This is it, I guess.
I love you, Joe. come back to me?
Come and get me once you've let our people in. I love you too.
They kissed again. Josephine could feel a tear run down Ronnie's cheek. She couldn't bring herself to say it, but this was obviously goodbye.
What do you say in the army? Give him hell?
In my unit, we said, be safe and let's have a beer when you come back.
Be safe, and let's have a beer when I come back then.
Give him hell. They kissed once more and Ronnie ran away, tears streaming down her face. Josephine raised her hands, took a deep breath, and stepped into the hallway. She turned to look towards the machine gun. It was maybe 50 steps away. There were 3 soldiers behind it. One of them gestured for her to move along. She turned to see the open elevator waiting at the other end. She nodded to the soldiers and walked hastily to the elevator. As soon as she got in, its doors closed behind her. She traveled upward. She tried to count the floors. Francis would be at the very top. That was his style. She dropped her watch on the ground. No more calls from Francis. When she thought she was at more or less the right point, she pulled her pistol and shot the control panel. Nothing happened. Cursing, she slid her knife between the doors, pushed with all of her strength. She then twisted the blade to create a gap and wriggled her hand and leg out, and pushed the doors apart even more. The elevator didn't stop, but she did fall out of it just in time. She looked around her. She was where she wanted to be, on the floor underneath Francis. These were the offices of the top brass of Nephthys. Needless to say, no one was home. At this level, there were only 6 large offices, each belonging to the heads of different departments. All of them were huge and had a personal balcony, bedroom, and all the other comforts of a 5-star hotel suite. Work was just a lifestyle for the people in these rooms. It wasn't something they had to do. One of the office doors had a label, Miss Josephine Lace, Humane Water Department. Francis had anticipated Josephine wouldn't play along. He also didn't lack a sense of humor. Josephine tried the door to her office. It was open. She didn't enter. There was nothing for her to gain by wasting time acknowledging Francis's tricks. She opened another office door and walked past the conference screen, large ebony desk and bar cabinet to the balcony. There was a pool on the balcony, but that didn't interest her. She jumped over the railings to the narrow ledge running around the building, the one with the trees and the waterfalls. It was quite cold up here, too cold and windy for most tropical trees to grow. Yet along the ledge there were tall palm trees intermingled with the waterfalls. They were almost too thick for her to reach around. Almost. She looked down. There were tanks on the square. She was running late. She didn't watch the battle unfold. Guilt washed over her. She'd abandoned her people. She'd abandoned her people so she could climb this fucking tree. Reaching around it, she pulled herself up and locked her legs around it too. There were no branches, but the trunk was coarse and uneven, so it was easy to get a grip on. Slowly, she shimmied herself up, occasionally battered by gusts of wind. Her fingers were freezing. Eventually, she reached the bushy fronds at the top of the tree. Was she high enough? There was only one way to find out. She grabbed the leaves and pulled herself to the top of the tree. The wall was smooth. There was no vine or railing that she could grasp. Cursing, she leaned against it and rose until she was kneeling on top of the tree. The railing was just out of reach. She held her breath and jumped. Her heart skipped multiple beats as she squeezed the steel bar with her good hand. She hauled herself up and hooked her injured arm around it too. The very hand she'd hurt pulling a stunt exactly like this. Slowly, she scaled the steel railing and finally toppled over it. She was on Francis's floor now. That knowledge gave her the adrenaline to roll over and get up. She couldn't see him. The top floor was like she remembered it. Round with a waterfall circling it, revealing one section at a time. Then there he was, standing in the middle and not looking. And looking, not at the elevator, but towards another point of the circular room. Her office, she realized. Francis had been counting on her to go through her own office. The waterfall approached her. She knelt again and pointed her gun. As soon as the sheet of water was gone, she'd break the window. For 20 agonizing seconds, the water obscured her view. She held her breath. As it was passing her, she slowly stood up. Suddenly, her view was clear, and she was looking down the barrel of Francis's gun. He fired. The window glass shattered into 1,000 tiny shards that flew into Josephine's face and nearly caused her to stumble and fall to her death. But Francis hadn't hit her, and now she was aiming her gun at his heart. Francis lowered his gun and gestured for her to enter.
You know, the elevator would have been quicker.
God damn. The soldier on the ground was wailing as he bled. Ronnie shot him in the stomach. As soon as the elevator had closed, Ronnie had heard boots approaching her as she'd expected. She'd hidden herself behind a desk and waited patiently. 4 guards had entered, covering all corners swiftly and decisively. Crawling behind a cabinet and a computer, Ronnie had waited for them to pass, and she'd swirled around and dispatched them. They didn't suffer. The fifth one did, though. Ronnie had blundered. 2 men had come from behind her. She was still aiming in the other direction. They had shot first, but she had shot better. The fifth man had died after a few moments, spasming and gasping for air as his lungs filled with blood. The sixth was still alive. He was shaking and crying hysterically. Does someone expect you to come home tonight? A boy or a girl? The bleeding man didn't answer. He was young. Your mom? The youth nodded in panic. Okay then, let's get you to your mom alive. She found a first aid kit on the wall and began to staunch the bleeding. I'm not sorry I shot you. You tried to shoot me, but I'm going to blame myself if I let you die when you could have lived. Hold this. With a firm hand, she bound the wound and tied off the bandages. I can't stay with you, but I think you might make it. I've seen men come back from worse. I don't think I hit any major organs, maybe. Who knows? She kissed the boy on the forehead. I'm sorry I killed all your friends. My friends are coming for you. Ronnie shook her head. No, I'm coming for them. She gave the boy a shot of morphine and left him. He might live if ambulances began arriving to this place soon. She'd done her part to save one life. Now she would take that from anyone who stood between her and Joe. She took tear gas grenades from corpses and ran back. The machine gun was still there, and there was still someone manning it. Only now Ronnie had tear gas grenades that she could shoot from her rifle. She shot 3 grenades and watched as white gas obscured her from view. The machine gun began firing. She dropped to her belly and crawled onward. She had to get close before the gas dissipated. When she thought she was close enough, she took 2 regular grenades and gave a silent prayer. She threw them towards the machine gun and followed immediately after the explosion, running through the smoke. She slammed into a very much alive and breathing man who'd ventured across the sandbags. Together they fell over the barricade and into the machine gun post. Ronnie scrambled for her gun and shot the man. Then she turned and emptied her magazine towards the fortified position. 2 others died as well. She lay on her back for a moment and focused on breathing. She hadn't done that in a while. The end of the hallway was upside down. No, she was. She rolled over and aimed her gun once more before realizing that it was empty. She swapped in a new magazine and rose, slowly. There was no one there. She'd broken through the trap, but she wasn't done fighting. They stood for a while, Josephine aiming her gun and Francis not responding.
Where's Amy and Bob? Free them and you might live to see tomorrow. Ms. Sierra and Mr. Larson were in my custody for a while, but they escaped hours ago. So, the message was fake? Ms. Sierra did say all those words. I had them rearranged and modified, just for you. Are they alive? According to most recent reports, yes. Of course, that can change any moment. Did you inspect your new office? No, there's nothing there I'd be interested in. Shame. I've known for some time that you couldn't be bought, but I thought you had a more curious nature. I didn't come this far to exchange pleasantries. Why are you here? You could be in complete safety. That was my plan, but then you whipped masses into motion. How would it look if I hit when everything I stand for is in danger? And what is that exactly? Money? If you think I'm in this for the money, then you're far dumber than I gave you credit for. Money is a means to an end. I despise those who seek only financial gain. Have you forgotten our vision? A city of innovators and pioneers. A city where everyone can pull their own weight, where no one is required to forcibly keep the weak links from drowning. Those weak links are breaking into your palaces and hanging your friends from the windows as we speak. And yet, when tomorrow comes and order is restored, they'll be just as miserable as before. All those who survive, anyway. Unless you have a brilliant exit plan. No, I didn't think so. You promised the miserable masses revenge, plunder, and water, but you can't promise them a tomorrow. Tomorrow belongs to me, and my vision. You can move all the water you want. Your vision is dead. My people know what they can win. Since when are they your people? 6 months ago you worked for me. Since then you've stumbled from one desperate gamble to another with a shrinking group of acolytes. You're not a revolutionary, Josephine. You're a husk, driven by obsession. And yet I don't have to pay people to get them to follow me. How unfortunate, then, that the fight for the future of this city isn't a popularity contest. Let's imagine that you kill me. Way ahead of you. What happens then? Eventually, one of my cowardly colleagues will call in the army and order will be restored. Nephthys will still own the water in the city, considering you abandoned your quest for my contracts. Now why is that? Earlier today you risked the lives of everyone close to you to get to them. Dr. Maturana died so nobly, why throw that sacrifice away? I came to avenge him, and Mr. Kendrick, and all the others. No, you came to avenge yourself.
Francis shot her in the arm. Josephine shrieked and fell to her knees, dropping her gun.
Let's see how that goes.
Francis threw his gun away and launched himself at her, grinning in triumph. The battlefield was in chaos. Great steel machines rolled over the square, shooting at anyone who didn't run away. Most riders had made it to one of the surrounding buildings. Amy could see them move up the towers, turning on the lights at every floor. But those who had followed her were now sandwiched between the machine guns at the gardens and the fast-approaching steel monsters. Bob had survived the explosion and was now in the rear, being treated for burns. Amy crawled forward. The smoking husk of their battering ram provided some cover. The machine gunners were more mindful of their shots now than before. They were taking care not to hit the tanks. Not that the men inside were in danger from bullets, but they might always respond to any fire they received. Amy clutched a bundle of grenades in her hands. She could smell the burning gasoline still flaming in the car. She was so close to the gunmen now that the sounds were deafening. They hadn't noticed her yet. They didn't break into the gardens now, they wouldn't at all. They'd be torn apart by bullets and crushed underneath the tanks. Inside they had a chance. No sane security guard would fire on the most valuable real estate in the city. She heard a click above her. She looked up and found herself staring into a mask and a gun. The light from the burning car lit up the face beneath the mask. It was a man with dark eyes. Suddenly, the man rolled over and fell down next to Amy. Someone had shot him. Amy tried to command her legs to work. They wouldn't. She was too scared.
Fuck!
She grabbed the sandbags with one hand and pulled herself up. There was nothing left for her to throw grenades at. The guard positions were full of the dead and dying. A few scared guards huddled behind their own sandbags, shocked to the core. Amy looked around for a culprit, and then she saw her. Ronnie was sitting behind the smoking barrel of a machine gun, back in the lobby. She too was visibly shaken. Amy waved at her, and she didn't respond. Amy hopped over the sandbags and approached her. She stepped in a pool of blood. When she got closer, she saw that Ronnie was breathing heavily and sweating.
Ronnie!
She looked her in the eyes, but Amy wasn't sure if Ronnie actually saw her.
Ronnie, are you alright?
They couldn't hear me approaching. They didn't have a chance.
You killed them all.
Yeah. I think I did. Sorry, I'm tired. I've been fighting all day.
It's not over yet.
Amy hurried back to the sandbags and waved at the rioters.
Come on, the way is clear. Get in.
She watched as the rioters began rushing in, first one at a time, then by the dozens, and then the hundreds. Her people were now under shelter. Amy could breathe again. She sat next to Ronnie.
Was it bad?
It's always bad. It's less bad when it's self-defense. Those bastards never saw me coming.
You saved my life, if that makes you feel any better.
It does. How did you get all these people to follow you?
I pretended to be Josephine. Where is she, anyway?
Ronnie leapt up. Fuck! Joe, she's fighting Francis! She needs help! Ronnie stormed off, picking up a new rifle from the ground. Amy was suddenly very tired. She'd been fighting for a long time as well. Her muscles ached and she was bruised all over. She got up and took a deep breath. There were people around her waiting for orders.
Get everyone inside and stay clear from windows if you don't have a rifle. Search every floor, break every computer, and arrest every Nephthys worker you find. Don't get too used to giving orders like that. Eventually they're gonna figure out you're just a rich girl. It's good to see you on your feet. How are you? I'm a bit barbecued, but the nurse said I'm gonna be fine. Any sign of our friends? Ronnie was here, but she ran off to save Josephine. Oh, well, shouldn't we go help her? You can go. I need to make sure everyone gets inside. If Army Girl can't handle it, there ain't much I can do. What are your orders, Crazy Joe? We need to find as much evidence as we can about Nepka's plans, and figure out what to do about those tanks. Yeah, they may not be able to get in, but we sure as hell can't get out either. We should gather some of the better shooters and man the defenses the guards were so nice to build for us. You think they're alright? Yes, I have to think that.
Josephine couldn't breathe. Francis was squeezing the life out of her with both hands. She kicked with her legs, but Francis was strong, and one of her arms didn't respond at all. She was bleeding heavily. She could feel the growing pool of blood around and beneath her. Francis was smiling. Excuse me. This is why he'd stayed behind, why he couldn't delegate this to someone else. Francis wanted to do this himself. So much for cold and calculating. Josephine kicked him in the groin. He grunted but didn't let go. Desperate, Josephine stuck the thumb of her working hand into Francis's eye. He let go and Josephine rolled around, gasping for air. He grabbed her by her hair and slammed her face into the floor. But she was free now. She elbowed him in the throat and slipped out from underneath him. The gun. Where was the gun? There, by the window. Francis caught her. She was limping towards it, and she fell down. She kicked him furiously and crawled forward. Francis grabbed her wounded arm and pressed his fingers into the wound.
Ah! You know, I honestly expected you to show up with at least some backup and a clever plan. Instead, you limp in, worn out and weak. You disappoint me. And there won't be mercy this time.
Josephine bit him as hard as she could on the arm that was squeezing her.
Fuck, you rabid bitch!
Francis responded by punching her in the face. Josephine tasted blood. Her hand brushed against something sharp, a shard of the broken window glass. Shrieking, she stabbed him in the chest with it. The shard was small, the wound wasn't deep, but it definitely hurt. Francis reeled back and stood up. He kicked her in the stomach as hard as he could. Josephine thought she heard some of her ribs crack.
You know, I was going to just kill you and throw your corpse from the window, but maybe it's more fun if you get to watch your little revolt disappear in a storm of fire.
He limped to his desk. There was a control panel.
Your own men are down there, police and tanks! And I'm about to pull them out. What do you think I am, a monster?
He pressed a button.
This is Brabeck. Withdraw all units from the square. I'm calling in the fireworks.
Sir, the riders have mostly retreated into the surrounding buildings.
Then I suggest you pull your men far from those buildings.
Sir! Francis hung up.
It's better this way. This city needs a new center. An expansion of the gardens is long overdue.
Josephine was lying on the ground. Pain was pounding in her chest, punctuated by the deafening pulses of agony from her arm. Francis was hurriedly giving orders on his panel. The gun, it was still by the window. Josephine began crawling towards it again. Just as she was about to reach it, Francis stepped on her hand, and she moaned.
Now that is a bad idea.
Francis picked up the gun and threw it out the window.
I prefer old school.
He grabbed her by the hair and pulled her up, only to slam her against the window.
You're going to want to see this. Don't worry, your friends won't suffer. It'll be over in seconds, and do you see those clouds? Soon, calming rains will come and wash away all their suffering, and the very memory of their pain. It's almost poetic. In death, they'll have the water they fought for in vain when they lived. And then janitors will come and scoop any remnants for fertilizer.
He hammered Josephine's face into the glass to drive the point home.
Rain doesn't wash away blood. I know from experience.
And she slammed her little glass dagger into Francis's thigh as hard as she could. Francis let go, but rebounded quickly and slammed her against the window. And through it. Josephine fell down onto the narrow ledge outside and was left gasping as the air fled her lungs. Suddenly, Francis was on top of her, smiling his broadest smile yet.
I knew you still had some fight in you. I wonder if it ever runs out.
In just under 2 hours.
I envy you. My people, those rich cunts I fought and bled for, ran away as soon as they heard you coming. And your people, whom you tricked into being your distraction, are going to die for you even though you abandoned them. I don't envy them. And I don't envy you. I used to, but what's there to envy? You're alone, and all you talk or think about is your precious vision. And what's that but a fantasy that you can shape the world as you please, that people will think of you? I'm sorry, your talking is ruining my moment.
He punched her again. Josephine spat out blood on his suit.
You want to know the truth? They don't think of you. They see you on the news and know your face. Some of them like what you say, others don't, but you're not important to them. They care about their friends, their family, their neighbors. They care about their bills and sports. They don't care about the rich folks running this city, and you should be glad they don't. Because the moment they start to care, it'll look like this.
Josephine gestured to the towers across the square. Men in suits were being hung from the windows.
You're pathetic. No one shapes their lives more than me. I decide who lives and who dies.
Except tonight. Oh, that's you. I'm so sorry I took that from you. Give it a go.
Except tonight. No, especially tonight.
Frances produced a shard of glass similar to the one Josephine had used. As he came for Josephine's throat, she grabbed his tie and pulled as hard as she could. His face was so close they were practically kissing. She could smell his breath and his cologne. It was fresh and elegant. She rolled over and pushed, and Frances fell. He caught the ledge with his free hand. Quickly, he discarded his glass shard and began climbing back up. Josephine stabbed his hands furiously again and again with another piece of glass. Squeezing it was cutting her own hand, but she didn't stop.
I can stop the flames. They won't fall. You need me. I've never needed you. You know, the funny thing is, Norbert would have argued that I should save you, despite everything. And you killed him. That's the lesson you taught me, that people like you can't be spared.
Suddenly there was terror in Frances's eyes. The sheet of water that had been making the rounds the whole time they'd struggled had reached them. Josephine relished the feel of ice-cold, clear water. It did wash the blood away. Frances was spitting and turning his face away from the frigid shower. It passed them. Josephine took Frances's hand, and she stabbed it into a bloody pulp.
This date is over. I hope it was worth it.
She let go. Frances tried to say something, but then he fell. His body slammed into another ledge further down and flipped, falling all the way to the ground. Josephine looked around her. There was death and chaos everywhere. It wasn't just her vengeance that was being enacted. The rioters were connecting the towers with the makeshift plank bridges and murdering everyone they found. Furniture was being thrown out of windows, as were computers. Large bonfires were being built on the roofs. The plaza below was filled with corpses. Was this what victory looked like? Tanks were pulling out. Of course, the airstrikes. Slowly, she got up and went back into the office. The interface wasn't difficult. She gave the strikes new coordinates and sat down in Frances's office chair. It wasn't even that comfortable. So expensive it was a crime to bleed on it, but not very comfortable. She was still sitting there when Ronnie found her. She was unconscious. Ronnie slung her over her shoulder and headed for the elevator when she heard thunder. Except it wasn't thunder. She turned to see the hulking, spider-like mass of the CWS in the distance, its sharp edges outlined by a dazzling light. It was disappearing in a rain of fire. Ronnie had seen airstrikes before. Moving fast, she made it to the elevator and frantically slammed the buttons. The ride was long and she was tired. So very tired. Amy and Bob were waiting in the lobby. "Quickly, she's bleeding. She needs help." They laid her down and Amy barked orders to get someone with the barest of medical skills on site. They staunched Josephine's bleeding and bound her wounds. She'd been lucky. The bullet had gone through her arm. "She needs a blood transfusion," a nurse said.
Is anyone here a universal donor?
A few hands rose up. Soon one of them was joined to Josephine with a plastic tube. She was breathing.
Ronnie, the tanks are filling up.
They did that long ago. Can you tell us what happened up there? I found you alone.
We fought. I think I won. Wait. He fell. I definitely won.
I knew you would.
Did you guys win too? Thanks to these two ladies, you should have seen Amy lead them. Wait, there was chaos on the square. Are there still people out there? We got most of us into safety. The tanks left. We don't know why. Francis was going to bomb the square. He was losing it. That prick lost it ages ago. Is he dead now? Yes, he got what was coming to him. So did a lot of his friends, but we didn't get the contracts. I redirected the airstrikes to hit the CWS. Wherever that lump of metal was is a crater now. So, then we won? We still have to get out of here. None of us are safe in the city ever again after this.
The army will soon occupy the streets, but I have an idea. We can get out the way Joe and I came in.
It's a good idea. Are you really in charge, Amy? Well, yes, but in all fairness, they think I'm you. You need to tell me that story on the way. I will. Wait, where's Norbert?
Fuck.
They shot him at City Hall. No.
It was my fault. I missed my shot at this guard, and Norbert tried to help him, and...
It wasn't your fault, Ron. That man was a cold-blooded murderer. He's one of the few I'm glad I killed. I can't believe it. He's smart. Doc knows not to get in a gunfight. He wouldn't just... He tried to help that man, like he tried to help everyone.
Amy was crying.
So many have died today. I thought I'd be numb to it by now.
Josephine took her hand.
It's good that you're not numb.
She's right. The deaths of good people shouldn't feel trivial. Amy threw herself into Josephine's arms.
We avenged him. All those guilty are dead now. That doesn't bring anybody back. It doesn't even make me feel better. Me neither.
Really? You've been obsessed with revenge for months.
I know, but now that I got it, I'm just as wounded as I was before. The only times I didn't feel like screaming were those moments when we were all together at the house. I thought it would be like that when I got my payback, but now I'm just ashamed. You got nothing to be ashamed of. You inspired all these people. And then I left them behind so I could get even with Francis. Amy, I think you should stay in charge of these people. What? No, they only followed me because they thought I was you. They'll never follow Amy Sierra. After tonight, I think they will, but we have to get going.
Where? We have no safe house and we aren't safe anywhere in the city.
Then we won't stay in the city.
You mean...
We can't protect ourselves or any of these people here. We might die out there. We very likely will. I know a thing or two about drilling wells. If we can get some equipment... How are we going to convince anyone that they should follow us to live in the fucking desert? We won't pressure anyone to come with us, but there's not much of a life to have here. Many of these people will be wanted criminals by tomorrow, and it's our fault. We have to take care of them.
Amy got up.
I'll talk to them.
On their way out, Ronnie directed some nurses to look after a young security guard brought up from the basement. He was bleeding but alive.
You're getting soft.
It's that or end up like that bastard who shot the doc. I know bandaging one wound after shooting and stabbing and blowing my way through the city makes no sense, but I had to do it.
It does make sense. There's one less parent without a child because of it. Truth is, I think you always were soft deep down.
Really?
Absolutely. The kind of soft who takes care of the elderly and little kids and pampers their girlfriend.
We'll see how much pampering there is to be done in the desert. Slowly, in single file, they made their way to the ruptured water pipe that led to the subway tunnel. They passed the piles of charred bodies in silence. Josephine and Ronnie shared a look. One child would come home after tonight, but none of these would. In the subway, they were met by the looters from the other buildings, who'd used the quiet moment to sneak underground into safety. Amy took over, and her flashlight bearers led the way as they trekked downhill in the silent darkness. Very few people spoke. Josephine was so weak that eventually Bob carried her on his shoulders. At every station, Ronnie organized a group of armed rioters to check the premises before they continued. They didn't meet any resistance. Instead, they found people wanting to join them. Bob and Amy were happy to see that Jim, though still weak, had found his family and joined the march. Apparently, his last night of service had made him reconsider his career quite a bit. Just as people joined the march, many of the rioters hopped off at the station closest to their home, unwilling to risk the desert. The crowd emerged from the far end of the subway line just before dawn. They were so close to the desert that sand was piled up in the streets. There they stopped to rest and resupply. They looted stores, water shops, stole some trucks and ambulances. Josephine sighed with relief as she was plugged into a power source. After a few hours, the first cars started out, and one by one the column disappeared into the horizon. Good evening, everyone. Metro News 411. I'm Chris Rivers.
And I'm Tina McAllister.
Ooh,
But first, the Chiron. Unmasking our protectors, the brave men and women of the security industry keep you safe. These are their stories. Ungrateful.
Unemployed woman in debt, jailed after refusing work at an honorable pleasure house. The future of workplaces? Innovative architect proposes getting rid of suicide nets forever by simply not building windows.
A memorial service was held today for the victims of the bloody riots 2 months past.
Although thousands of lives were lost in the wanton slaughter that day, one loss stands above all others.
Frances Brabeck, beloved innovator, philanthropist, and visionary, was murdered in his office by unknown terrorists.
Today, the mayor lowered a wreath on his grave and announced the square in front of the gardens would be renamed after him.
Frances Brabeck isn't the only leader the city recently lost. Among those murdered were several dozen important stock owners and CEOs.
The areas where 2 massive explosions rocked the city remain closed as bodies are being found and unexploded ordnance cleared.
In his speech, the mayor thanked the engineers of the public sector, who quickly restored the flow of water to all parts of the city.
Questions have been raised on whether Nephthys, whose heavy investment in the CWS turned out to be a loss, can be expected to pick up its former contract. City officials are currently exploring other options. Another deeply affected branch of the economy is the private security industry.
Since private security companies bore the brunt of the fighting, its heroic personnel also took staggering losses. Therefore, in a blast from the past, public servants have taken over patrolling the streets for now.
Although the rioting was savage, there have been few incidents since the unexpected burst of violence.
We can only pray that this fragile peace will continue after so much bloodshed.
Although the city has calmed down, nothing is currently known of the hundreds of fugitives who escaped to the desert.
Authorities believe that the desperate criminals may have met their end in the unforgiving wasteland.
To which I say, good riddance. There's no more poetic end to the murders of Frances Brabeck than death by thirst. He was gonna give me his number. Now, moving on to more cheerful news, are your days at work a real drag?
In a new virtual theme park, you can gamify your repetitive work to better match what you actually want to do.
I guess from tomorrow on, I'll be reading spell books instead of news.
Ha ha ha!
Ha 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 ha. Josephine turned the screen off. They had arranged their cars around the wells in a circle. For the first few weeks, that had been their camp. The desert was everything it was advertised to be. That is, mostly dry and empty. But it wasn't monotonous. Rolling hills, high rocks, and canyons dotted the landscape. With a bit of digging, little streams were easy to come by. There were lots of birds and small plants that persevered. It was serene, especially at night when the heat dropped and it became pleasantly cool. But it was also stark. They hunted and gathered what they could, but mostly they subsisted on stolen canned fruit from allies in the city. And the wells that gave them water were fickle. On good days, everyone got their fill of water with plenty left over for coffee. But there were plenty of bad days too, and no rain had come their way yet. Her wounds hadn't completely healed. She couldn't take the long hike she would have liked to. The worst was the gunshot wound in her arm. Sometimes she spent nights biting her lips trying not to cry out in pain. She got up and left her tent. It was about time. The camp was becoming a more pleasant place every day. Some of the more industrious residents were trying to build houses from mud bricks. Latrines had been dug and they had a common water tank above the well. She found Bob feeding the goats with some of the kids. A bloodless raid at an industrial cattle farm had left them with plenty of livestock to look after. The goats were enjoying the free air as much as the people did. There were about 200 people in their little camp, but news about their success was spreading. Another refugee camp had been founded a week ago. The camps kept regular contact.
How are the fields, Bob? They're coming along, but the soil ain't great. Will we have a harvest next year? If nothing horrible happens and the water keeps coming, how's the arm? It's better. Hurts like a bitch sometimes, but it's better. And your heart?
Not up in the corner anymore.
I could ask you the same thing. Mine's good as long as I get a charge every other day. That's half of what you used to need. I know. Soon I'll be as free from the power cord as you are. Can't wait to put you to work in the fields. Where are the others?
Sorry I'm late. I was setting up patrols.
It's okay. Have they found anything?
The scouts found some tire tracks west of here, but it's probably nothing to worry about. I was thinking of sending another sabotage team.
So soon after the last one?
There are people in the city who need water.
It's risky. Boss girl won't let you. Won't let her do what? Sorry I was late. There was a squabble back there. Those two moms again? Yeah, I don't get it. Their kids get along so well. Anyway, shall we?
They made their way out of the camp to a small hill. The sun was setting.
Do you have it? I do.
Bob produced a heavy slab of stone. He dug a shallow hole and laid the stone in it. On it was carved Norbert. The T barely had any space on the slab.
I wanted to write his full name, but I ran out of rock. It's perfect, Bob. Norbert would have loved it.
Yeah, he would have. Do you want to say something, Joe?
Norbert, you brought me back from the dead. You believed in me when I didn't. You were the kindest, sweetest man I've ever known. On our last day, just before you got shot, I promised you there would be rest at the end. I know you're not actually buried down there, but this is me fulfilling that promise.
Ronnie put a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to continue.
Yes, I do. Even at the very end, when you were so far gone you didn't recognize me, you wondered if I needed help. You were the most selfless man to have lived. I love you, Norbert. I miss you. Anybody else? Doc, I think I had a crush on you from day one. I'll never forget how you never underestimated me. And how cutely clumsy you were with Beato on the phone. Or how you charmed my parents. I'm not good at this kind of thing. I guess I had a crush on you from day one, too. Thanks for fixing my ticker, and giving Joe here a new one. It was nice to hang out with someone as smart as you who didn't look down on me. We could have used you here, and in the fights to come, but I guess...
Bob's voice was breaking.
I guess you're now fixing tickers in some better place. Someone take it from here.
Doc, I have to admit that there were times when I hated your guts, but that was just because I was jealous. You were good to everyone you met, right down to the bastard that killed you. If someone deserved to make it out alive, that was you. So of course you were the one they got. I blame myself that you died. I know you wouldn't blame me, but that's Just because you were so damn good all the time. I'm sorry about the last day. I'm sorry I punched you. I'm sorry I was so jealous of you that I didn't really think to befriend you until it was too late. Josephine held her.
I'm sure he felt the same way about you.
They stood in silence for a while. The sunset was phenomenally beautiful.
Ronnie, wasn't there...
Oh yeah, Joe, I get it if you're not in the mood, but I actually had something planned for tonight.
Oh, we should get going then. Bob, thanks for the stone. It means a lot to me. I'm just sorry I couldn't make a bigger one. So, see you guys tomorrow? Absolutely. Good night.
Ronnie led Josephine away without saying where they were going.
They're so cute together. I know. So what are you doing? I guess I have to go work. The hunters are complaining that they don't get enough bullets. And I keep telling them that we have to split them between them and the guards. I don't know, this leadership stuff is heavy, and... Stop lying your ass off. What? I know you're seeing that guard boy. Pretty one. Jim, was it? You know, Jim was a sociology major before he became a guard and a shepherd.
And before we, dropped him out of a helicopter that one time.
And killed him and then brought him back to life. Explains why our goats keep running away. He's a good kid. Sister's nice too. How's that going? He's nice. Let's leave it at that for the moment. You know, you're really good at this. At what? Leading. These people would be dead without us, but it's thanks to you they aren't going hungry. I seem to recall it was your idea I take charge. And for once I had a good idea, but I'll let you get to your date. See you tomorrow. Not so fast. While we're on that topic... Oh, don't start. I see you've shaven your beard, and is that cologne I smell? No, because we don't have it. It's just good smelling deodorant. So, I take it you're seeing that cook. I'll have you know she used to work at a steel factory, but yeah, she invited me for dinner. I'm taking it slow. I don't want to ruin it. She has kids and all. You're 52, Bob. Don't take it slow.
Bob laughed.
Good point as always. Okay, I'll let you get to your hunter problem and I'll go have dinner. Until tomorrow, then. Until tomorrow.
They walked in separate directions. It wasn't the same as it had been. They were together, but not alone. Neighbors see each other less than roommates, but they would always share the months they had lived together, fought together. Up on the hill, Ronnie led Josephine to a shady grove. There was set a table with candles on it waiting for them.
What is this?
I figured I never took you on a candle at dinner. I owe you at least one.
This is beautiful. Thanks, sweetie.
They shared a kiss. How are you? That couldn't have been easy.
It wasn't, but I'm glad we did it. What about you? You had nightmares again last night.
Yeah, they don't seem to go away. It's just... The last day was like I was back at war. It took a heavier toll than I expected. I'll recover.
You know, we have other fighters. Amy will understand if you want to take a break from patrolling and sabotage.
Maybe you're right. Maybe I should talk to her. What about you? I've seen you watching the city skyline at night.
I'm torn. Part of me will always want to go back and fix everything, but... Last time cost a lot of lives. Lives that are on me. Perhaps it should be someone else.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if Amy let us back in a few years.
I know she will. I'm proud of her.
You left the revolution in good hands.
So, what have you prepared for us?
The same food we ate with Mr. Kendrick.
That's so...
Thunder boomed suddenly. It was followed by a downpour of rain. The candles instantly went out. Crap, not now. I know we've been waiting for rain, but fuck!
It's okay, get underneath the tablecloth.
Laughing, they wrapped themselves in the tablecloth Ronnie had brought and sat under a tree with their meals. Far away, lightning struck a hill. The darkness obscured the skyline, but the lights of the city were visible. A gust of wind rustled the leaves on the trees. Josephine turned to Ronnie and embraced her.
This is the best date I've ever been on.
Me too. I really do love you, Joe.
I love you too.
They sat in the rain, eating their meal and drinking wine straight from the bottle. Across the desert, the city's streets were whipped by the downpour that drove the wealthy indoors. Meanwhile, downtown, people flooded the streets with pots and buckets. Policemen huddled in their cars, and construction workers decided collectively to take the rest of the day off. Back at the desert camp, the refugees rushed to collect all the water they could. The big tank was already filling up. By morning, they would have water for weeks. Bob and Amy ran into each other in the yard. Soon, Ronnie and Josephine made it back as well, and the four of them laughed as they stood in the rain. Children played in the puddles. Tomorrow would be a good day. What a fucking great game!
Yeah, that went places.
This-
I did not expect this to be that in-depth and to go everywhere it did.
I love how uncompromising it is too. Okay, the very final bit was a little saccharine, but it earned that.
It earned it so hard.
None of the bits that lead up to it were at all easy or could be glossed. If you want a game that shows all of the really complicated facets of what it's like to live, what it's like to live in a capitalist society, this is it. Everyone is culpable, but everyone still has the agency to make their own decisions at the end of the day. Oh my god, that is a lot. Go get this game for yourself if you haven't yet, because we're not gonna play the Norbert ending.
Yeah.
You should go find that one for yourself. And thanks again to our patrons for selecting such a great game this month. I know it went on a little longer than our patron picks usually do, but as soon as we got into it, we knew we couldn't stop this.
Worth it.
This is absolutely worth it. I'm gonna let the credits play out because I want to make sure everyone gets their due here, because everyone who worked on this game deserves their moment for this. This was just, you know what, I was thinking it earlier on, and it came back to me towards the end here. A lot of games that have a cyberpunk aesthetic go very heavy on the cyber, but kind of forget about the whole punk bit.
Yep.
If there's no punk in your cyberpunk, then what are you doing? This is a lot of the games, and even some of the ones we play on the channel don't really focus in on the intentional anti-capitalist angle that's meant to be part of the genre. But they certainly didn't forget about that here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
got the high tech and the low life. That's all
high
you
tech,
need.
low life. Perfect. That's exactly what it is. Oh my god. Special. Who gets the special thanks? Renpy and Asper. Oh, this was Renpy? Renpy?
Nice.
Nice.
I couldn't tell.
I think you could do some really I kind of got the impression from the menus and stuff, but while we were playing it, you wouldn't know it.
You can do a lot of cool shit if you put in the work, I guess.
Yeah, you can. Oh my god. I'm just gonna click extras real quick here. There's a gallery and a jukebox. Hold on, we get a gallery? Oh, wow! Hold on. Major redesign about 6 months after start. Oh, cool. So that was her original design. So I guess that's her heart you can see on the...
Yeah.
Sketch...
Oh my god! That one's so good!
I love her very 80s shoulder pads here.
Yeah.
Those are definitely part of... those were necessary. Josephine used to have brown hair, but I vetoed it on the grounds of her being an anime character. We needed some inhuman colors. Striking colors.
It works.
It works! That's how you can tell who's important in an anime. Look for who has the funny colors. I do like the sharpness of her shoulders still.
Mm.
Oh, and those are all of her outfits.
Yeah.
Yeah, damn.
That's a Josephine.
Ah! Bonus alternate design I made after I grew to hate the old designs. In the end, I rejected this style. Oh, that's very cute, though. Oh, we see a lot of their portraiture is cut off by the text box, so we don't get to see a lot of it.
Yeah.
Ronnie's my favorite character. She's cool, snarky, but under all the snark, there's kindness. If she was real, I would ask her on a date less than 3. Oh, nice. Oh, I love seeing the evolution of the art styles here.
It's so cool.
It's, oh my gosh. And I the artist must have had an eye towards Anthe, right? With the color scheme, it's just too perfect.
The purple hair, the red
purple
clothes,
hair.
I don't know.
Purple hair on red. It's like, oh my God, Norbert.
He had a ponytail.
He had a ponytail. Oh my. And he was always with the neck, huh? Oh wow. I was in fact just polishing shit. What? Oh. Oh my God! Look at Francis. Francis looked so perfectly smug. Like, the way he sticks his chin out like that, and like he's looking down upon everyone around him. It's perfect.
Like he's always sighted down his nose at you.
Exactly. Like that subtlety in the visual design definitely came through. Oh my God. Amy with glasses. Hey, Bob. How you doing, Bob?
Chris and Tina.
Oh, Tina and Chris. She's also got the power shoulders.
Yeah.
Oh man, look at the. I really loved how like this game has a very unique use of color.
Yeah,
I felt it like you can look at any individual screenshot of this game and be like, oh, yeah, that's this game. Just from the color profile of it. Like, they used blue so sparingly, and I think that was very intentional, because when blue does show up, it's the water.
Yep.
Of the rotating... You know what I mean? It's like, when they do use the blues, it's so very important. Damn you, Beato! Taking us out for Italian food.
Vaporwave style game. That would have been wild. I think we ended up in a better place.
I do
for it
like
not being that.
Yeah, I do like the PC-98 style.
Yeah.
The ticker. Oh my God. I remember like checking up, like I kept thinking at some point maybe it was going to be like you have to make a decision based on how much battery juice you'll use.
But nope.
Nope, just it's there to stress you out, and I love it. Ooh, look at that. It's a little over the top, but I think that's perfect for a cyberpunk setting.
Yeah.
Because like it's meant to show how large. Oh wow, look at that.
And we made it back around.
And we made it back around. Sorry for the end at the end there, but as soon as I saw the artwork, I was like, we have to check this out. Bye.
Bye.
Smash that like, comment and subscribe.